Welcome to Love and Speak the Truth with me, Sister Brenda, the podcast where all voices are heard with diverse guests from all over the globe. We make space for stories of integrity, justice, freedom, and joy. So come along. We're not afraid to get into the tough stuff, and we're actually not afraid to laugh along the way. So buckle up, open your heart, open your mind, and let's get this party started. It is my great honor to welcome Carol Marin, a world-renowned teacher, writer, broadcaster, and journalist whose career reflects not only excellence, but unwavering integrity. For decades, her voice has informed, challenged, and inspired audiences with clarity and courage. Her warmth and empathy for the shifts of perspectives and the voices that challenge in our time is remarkably respectful. To have someone of her stature and character share her time and insight with us is nothing short of extraordinary. We welcome Carol Marin. So it is truly a great honor for me to have you sitting here in this podcast with me, and I am so delighted. It's a tremendous gift to have you here with me today, Carol, and to be able to share your wisdom. Such an accomplished journalist, high caliber journalist, and I have listened to you and respected you over the years. And I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, before we actually get into our conversation, I have a friend of yours here that she has a few words to say. Her name is Sister Teresa O'Sullivan.
I have been an admirer of Carol for many years, and even more so after she had her visit with us at the shelter. And she came with her clickety-click heels and her producer and wanted to know how we got started, what was going on here. And she said, "No, I would like to do an interview with both of you." And I said, "Well, Sister Connie's available. You can go have an interview with her. I really don't do interviews." Anyone who knows Carol knows that I had to do an interview before she left. This is how she was. You couldn't resist her with how she presented herself and how she just believed in whoever she was working with. And I will always love her for that. And we are dear friends all the way for the past 40 years or more. And I love her dearly, always will.
No.
It's so much to say something important to you. And I think the most important thing is that I know from years ago, before having met you at some of her fundraising events and so on, is that she loved you and she loves you still.
It's very mutual.
I just really want to kind of get a sense of what grounds you in this at this time in journalism. What does it really mean today in this political climate that the aggressive, punitive actions against truth telling? How do you deal with it in your understanding of journalism and truth telling and storytelling, for that matter?
I think I ground myself the same way you do. I'm a believer. I
Mm.
believe in journalism. I believe in its value, in its importance. I don't think it's ever been any more important than it is today, right now, this minute.
Mm.
And so, yes, it is dispiriting and disquieting and discouraging at this moment in our history. But I'm also buttressed by the belief that this is what we were made to do, and this is why we were made to do it.
What prepared you to be in this space of telling truth, speaking truth to power, really, and allowing the essence of who people are to come out in your reporting?
I think we are all how we were raised in so many important ways. So I explained to people that before I knew I was being prepared for journalism, I was being prepared for journalism by my parents. My mother was a Democrat and a devout Roman Catholic. My father was a Republican and a fallen away Baptist. They argued every night at the dinner table about the news of the day. We were very, very bottom of the rung blue collar. My dad was everything from a bartender, a salesman, a political organizer. My mother worked in a factory. The money that we had, and it wasn't a lot of it, some of it always went into buying every newspaper that was published every day. And for Chicago in those days, it meant the Chicago American, the Daily News, the Tribune, the Sun-Times, the National Observer. And my dad would bring the newspapers home after work, and invariably, he and I would fight over who got the Daily News first because we wanted to read Mike Royko first. So Mike Royko was one of my early professors before I ever knew it or he ever knew it. And so my journalism came from the fact that I was born into a family of readers, politically aware people, politically different people, religiously different people, and it gives you a really fascinating sense of who people are when you don't even think you're studying them, but you are. And so that's how I began. I went to school, went to the University of Illinois, was a member of the debate team. I didn't study journalism at the University of Illinois, but debate, you have to argue both sides of a question, and there are at least two sides to every question. And it taught me to think early on about how you frame questions, how you think on the other side of an issue, not just on your side of an issue. I was an English teacher for the first year out of college, and then I moved to Tennessee. I couldn't find a teaching job, and I auditioned on a dare from my husband to try out for a talk show. And I tried out for the talk show. It was a so-called women's talk show. In those days, very condescending. Women only did fashion and makeup, and men did serious issues. And my first month there, I brought on the Ku Klux Klan. And my management said, yeah, she's way too newsy for us. Send her to the newsroom. And the rest is history.
You know, that's fascinating to me because I think you don't realize the preparation period that we go through. I was thinking about myself, my own family, as you were talking. I was thinking, now, how am I connected to this in some way? We're very different people, and we had very different experiences, but that's where it comes from, isn't it? It comes from this sense of observing and being a part of something much bigger than yourself. As you absorb those differences and you balance them in your own way of understanding and thinking, and somehow it leads you to something else. And you speak of your father being the Republican, your mom being the Democrat, being able to hold those two energies in the room. That was a period of time. We're not in that time anymore.
No, well, no. It's either Republicans in the room or Democrats in the room, but the two of them don't get to be in the room. We need to strive for that someday again.
Yeah. How do we do it? I don't want to make America great again in that way, but I want to make America great in the sense that we can hold the difficulties and the conflict and recognize and respect the people behind them and not just let the conflict lead.
Right. I believe it will come. I do. I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not I'm not overly optimistic all the time, but we came out of very dark periods in our history
Mhm.
before we came out of McCarthyism, before, among other plagues upon our national soul, and I believe that it'll happen again. When, I don't know, but I think it'll happen.
In the meantime, what do you think has to happen? I know we don't have the answers necessarily, nor am I looking for an answer. But as I reflect on it and in asking you into the conversation, I wonder how we get there. What kind of table setting do we need?
You know, you're setting the table right now, aren't you? Every time we have a conversation, every time we have a dialogue, every time we get to say something to someone that someone else might hear and learn from, I think incrementally it happens. I think
Yeah.
in some perverse and awful way, the ICE raids that we're witnessing are causing some people who originally were sympathetic to say, wait,
Wait.
there's got to be another way to both make this country safe from people who might break the law and the way this is happening and to whom it's happening. But it's not fast, and that's not satisfying.
You're right. We're living in a time where instant gratification gets the prize, right? I mean, the fact that we can't solve this with the snap of a finger and or the change of the channel. It's true. It's going to take time, and we've been through some things. I was recalling for myself when first Mayor Daley was in office, and my mother, who went to the 6th grade, and she was not from this country, she was from Belize. She decided because her neighborhood was going down, she was going to write to the mayor. Imagine writing to the mayor. Oh, she wasn't anything because she couldn't vote. She was an immigrant, you know. Anyway, she wrote to the mayor, and the mayor called her on the phone and said, "This is your mayor." And I was the one phone. I thought she was an idiot because I was the one that typed the notes for her. But she wasn't an idiot. She took a chance. She was saying, "Why not? Why do I just sit here and let things happen to me and not do something about it?" And in the end, he made such a huge difference in her life. At the same time, out there in the ether, they were saying that he was a big racist, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when those riots happened during the convention, there were ice-like people out there
Mhm.
spraying and beating them with batons and so on. And in that era, you could not see any goodness shining forth. Just didn't happen. And I am looking for something that will give me the hope. Having this conversation gives me hope because you have a much wider view than I have. But I'm looking for the altruism in our society, the ability to see one another as neighbor and find that goodness, you know, that we're all looking for. I think I have it. Do I believe you have it? Yeah. But those people on the other side may not have it. So when or how do we work at building that is the struggle that I have right now. I don't know if there's an answer. So
I
for
don't think
sure.
there's an easy one. There
And,
isn't.
mhm.
There are probably multiple answers,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to wait a while to find it.
How did you happen to come across the House of Hope? When you met, Teresa O'Sullivan, that wonderful, wise woman who is so patient and kind and loving to some of the people who are the most different disenfranchised people. How did you get involved in at that time in you were early in your career, were you not?
I was much earlier, certainly. I was a reporter and anchor at NBC in Chicago, and the news director, Time Magazine had done some pieces, and one in particular on street people in Chicago. And he was fascinated by the people who were living on the street and wanted me and my producer to go out and develop a series on it. I said I would, but I didn't think that was a complete enough series, that it wasn't just people, not just street people. There were plenty of people who were homeless who didn't fit the definition of a street person per se.
Mm,
And that if I was going to do it, I told him, I thought we had to include women and children in different circumstances than just what you classically see as somebody on the street with a bag and a bottle on a park bench, that there was more to it than that.
mhm,
And he said, "Well, okay, do that too."
mm,
And we started making some calls. Somewhere along the line, someone had told me about Sister Connie Driscoll and Sister Teresa Sullivan, who bought or got an old grocery store at 63rd and Woodlawn. And uh, we came upon them when they were just really beginning to bring women and children in, and they were literally pounding out interior brick walls with ball peen hammers. I mean, they didn't have the equipment, they didn't have the stuff. They were still doing it. Connie and Therese were sleeping in the kitchen where they cooked the women and children meals. And Don Mosley and I, producer and I, went and started talking to them. And Therese is right. Connie was the bigger voice. You know, she had black eye patch. She's very charismatic. She's very strong. And Therese, quieter and did not want a camera. And I knew if I was going to talk to Connie, I had to talk to Therese, and that there's always somebody who has another voice. And Therese was a power in her own right, but exercised it differently. And the sound that we used from Teresa Sullivan was just a short sentence in which she said, "It was so hard to turn away someone in need. Even if you didn't have the space, you had to somehow find the space." You know, very few words, enormous power. And so that's how I came across Connie and Therese. And they quickly became friends for life. Connie has now gone on to her eternal reward. Therese is still at 80. I'm not even sure how old Therese is anymore, 85, 86. Still working and helping whoever she can.
And listening and being present.
And being present. And she's about 4 feet tall, but she is a towering presence.
Making space, yes. That's one of the things that she is great at. She continues to make space in the place where she is right now in Mercy Circle, where she continues to push her little walker around the place and engage with people. And you, who is the star of this moment, this podcast right now, you have found ways to make space in your work, in whatever it is your mission is. What is your mission right now? And how are you making space for whatever that mission is in your life? You're realizing people of faith never really retire. So,
Well, I'm not sure I would call it a mission, but I understand people of faith calling it that. So in 2020, I left broadcasting. I left NBC in Chicago and WTTW Channel 11. I had already been working at DePaul University. Don Mosley and I retired together and got married later. Don Mosley and I started the Center for Journalism Integrity and Excellence at DePaul at the request of Provost Selma Ganem and Father Dennis Holschneider. What they wanted to do, they had a journalism program already. They had really great faculty already. So they didn't necessarily need us, but they wanted to fortify what they had with more journalists, more emphasis on complex reporting. And so they asked Don and I to create a program where we took seniors and graduate students, people who were really at the end of their academic journey for the moment and getting ready to jump into the profession of journalism, and give them a last deep dive into complex reporting. We began to develop a curriculum and take 12 people every quarter to give them a last deep dive before they jumped into their jobs, wherever those jobs took them, the Tribune, Block Club, the Cleveland Chronicle, whatever. And so that's what we have been doing since 2016. So it's been a decade now. And now we have stepped back as the directors of that program. Lisa Parker, a former colleague at NBC, a great, great reporter, has taken over the directorship. Don and I remain as senior faculty fellows. We still run the programs there and still see students all the time. So it's very giving in its contact with youth. And our students, their mom and dad will say, "You're never going to make any money in journalism. It's a terrible profession. Everybody will hate you. Your aunt and uncle don't understand why you want to do it." And our students still cling to the idea that they're going to be a journalist. And our mission is to help them do that.
Yes. See, yeah, you have that mission. It's mission centered, what you do there. I'm wondering, Is it possible to teach integrity?
It is possible to teach integrity and to explain what we mean by integrity. It's funny because our students will come in, and now they've been in these classes for a fair amount of time, so they've formed a lot of opinions, and they will say, no one is unbiased. Objectivity doesn't exist. Objectivity is dead. It's a failed value, and I'm going to go do journalism and tell my own truth. And we say, that's great. That's great. We're not your parents, and we're not going to tell you how to live your life. However, in this class, you're going to tell somebody else's truth, not your truth. You're going to listen to other people's truths, which
Mhm.
are multiple and complex and varied. And you're going to try to compose from what you hear and learn and research a balanced, thoughtful story that's honest and true to the facts that you've gathered. Not the facts you want, not the
Mhm.
facts you chose to pick, but the facts that are the facts. And it's interesting to me because kids will resist you for a little bit and then they'll go, okay. And so we say, for the period of time that you are in our class, this is how you're going to do it. When you
Mhm.
leave our class, you're going to go
Find your
forth in your life and make your own decisions. And as a result, you sort of discern the way someone in religious life discerns and then rediscerns what their purpose is and what their plan is. The same
Yeah.
thing is true for our students. And it's exciting, positively exhilarating, really, to see what they do and how they grow. And that's what I believe will save journalism as much as anything else.
The two things that jumped out at me as you spoke about how you go about in your course to teach integrity, listening and discerning. Now, the religious people, we don't have a corner on the market on those two words.
Right.
But I truly believe, as I listen to you share how you go about helping the students there, think about what they must do, put aside their own judgments and their way of seeing and listening to the other person and getting those facts by listening deeply to what they're saying and discerning how they will articulate that. I think that those are the two qualities for me that we don't have in our society right now, in our geopolitical discourse, in our political ramblings of red and blue and all the rest. We don't listen well, and we certainly
Yeah.
are not discerning how our own biases impact the people we're trying to listen to. But that makes so much sense to me, what you're saying, holding that, and that those two things, listening and discerning, somehow helps us to grow into the call, if you will, of integrity, doing what is the right thing to do, even if it doesn't make us feel good or
Right.
make us look good, you know, and that's what you get to do right now.
I do. I think for all of us, I'm sure this is true for you and true for others. We go through our lives and they're divided up into chapters, episodes of
Mhm.
what we thought was important or how we wanted to progress. And each one of them carries some new revelation, and what we have realized, I believe, is that the students who go to school have so much on them, so much pressure. At DePaul, many of our students are first generation. Their families have scraped and saved and borrowed to get their kids, and our students have work multiple jobs while they go to school full time, many of them. That there are so many pressures today, and maybe there were when we were growing up, but it doesn't feel like there were as many, that you almost have to make an effort to remember that they exist in so many moments at a time,
Mhm.
that you need to help them with their mental health, with their hope, with believing that they have possibilities, even if they're worried that they don't. That's sort of
Mhm.
a rambling way of saying that it's all a continuum for me. And on this section of the continuum,
Mhm.
I'm still learning what my job is,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's changed.
When you use the word job, I choose to use the word vocation.
I know, I know.
Yeah. It puts the depth into, a job for me is something I get paid for, but you're famous for being a person of integrity in reporting, in telling the truth, in speaking truth to power. Uh, that's what I have experienced from a distance. And so why I think I would describe it more as a vocation is because this is who you are.
No, no, no,
No.
but but we all carry our own vocabulary of how we've done our work. I mean, I really do think of it as a job, a great job. It is my life's work. It's been my life's work, and that in every sense, and in every sense that you see it is a vocation. It's our purpose. It's
Mhm.
what gives our life meaning,
Mhm.
amid other things that give our lives meaning. I'm also somebody's mom, and anyone who's raised children, their own or somebody else's, doesn't matter. That's a job.
Mhm.
It's a mission, a purpose, a vocation, call it anything else, but it's work
Yeah.
and wonderful work, and I'm grateful for the work. But so we have different pieces of ourselves in play all the time doing the different things that we do.
Yes. Amen to that. For sure. For sure.
You're a daughter, you're a niece,
Mhm.
you're a sponsor, you're a boss, you're a
Mhm.
mother superior, you're whatever those things are.
How would you frame this whole idea of working towards a better world with more integrity and more purpose, and to somehow recognize in yourself how you're called to be an instrument of, improvement for the world? If we're not going to have a perfect world, but how do we navigate this moment in order to create a better opportunity for another moment in time? And that might be kind of off the wall, what I'm asking.
No, but it isn't off the wall in the sense that a way to ask it is, how can I be a better neighbor? How
Mm.
can I be a
Mhm.
better sister, a better teacher, a better person? And if you are fortunate enough to have some money, you can always give money to things. But
Mhm.
giving your time, that's another proposition entirely. There's a soup kitchen at DePaul University, which I love, and this is what I think is so great about DePaul, among the many things I think are great about DePaul, that across from the athletic center and just down from the student center is the back of the DePaul church. The back end of the church is where every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, people, homeless people, street people with shopping carts or backpacks gather at 7 o'clock in the morning to wait for the soup kitchen to open. And I think for our students, it reminds them that this is urban America. This is America where, with Mercedes and Audis driving down the street, there are people who need a hot cup of coffee and a lunch and a breakfast that can be provided. And one of the volunteers in there is Sister Katie. Now, Sister Katie also has a full-time job at Misericordia, which is a wonderful home for the developmentally disabled. My son is one of the residents there. But Katie volunteers before she goes to work. And so she's in the back of the kitchen packing lunches before she goes to her job. And you think, now, you would think the work that she does is being volunteer enough, but she always finds space and something more to do.
Yeah.
And I look at people like her and think, there's an example that
Mhm.
she's never done. She's still working at it. And I think there are so many people like that who don't get credit. who don't get attention. I know it was true in my own life that being on TV and in public, I got a lot of attention, more than I deserved, while people who were not in the public's eye and didn't get a trophy for walking in to give a speech, I mean,
Yeah.
ridiculous amounts of good intention. They get none, and yet they do what they do every day because it's the right thing to do. And so I remind myself that there are so many people out there who, my God, deserve our love, support, help, and which would include you, Sister Brenda, if I might say. And so it's gratifying. It gives me hope. It should give us all hope.
Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate hearing about Sister Katie and about the soup kitchen and about I think maybe you do, but I I give you the credit not as a newswoman or a journalist or a professor at a beautiful university like DePaul, but you didn't have to be here today, and you gave a little bit of your time, enough of your time to make a significant difference in my life and my world and my work so that I might share this little platform with a few people around the world. We have sisters in 40 countries who might take a listen to you saying, speaking about integrity and vocation and mission and purpose and highlighting the people that don't get to be in the limelight, like Sister Katie and like Sister Therese. And I want to kind of conclude a little bit. We always end the podcast with what's love got to do with all of this, all this stuff we just talked about. What's it come down to? I would like for you to share your little insight on what's love got to do with all of this, from your son, Sister Katie, Sister Therese, your mom and dad, all the stuff you get to do as a journalist.
Well, it's got everything to do with it. At the end of the day, it's got everything to do with it.
Yeah.
And in a time when it's so easy to hate, e- even hating injustice. If you spend all of your days hating injustice,
Wow. Well, yes, that's it. Availability to love. Thank you so much, Carol Marin.
well, it's my total pleasure, sister. My total pleasure.
And now for the wrap up. You have just had a human experience from a spiritual being. We have so much to learn. So go forth to love and speak the truth. Ad majorem Dei Gloria.